Good afternoon. This lecture is about plants, flowering plants, and crop plant families. The plant kingdom is made up of a variety of different major groups, including mosses and liverworts and lycopods, as well as ferns and gymnosperms, but are dominated now on Earth by angiosperms. We'll talk about the distinguishing features of angiosperms and then talk about briefly some of the major crop plant families. What is a plant? These are photosynthetic organisms that grow toward the light and toward the water. They are constructed of three major parts in most cases. They have leaves, stems, and roots. Leaves optimize photosynthetic surface area. They reach toward the sun, locate themselves strategically to capture sunlight, as well as absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Roots pursue water in the sediments below ground and grow down to the water to help capture it. The stems connect the leaves and the roots. The stems transport the photosynthetic products from the leaves to the roots to help the roots capture water, and the roots channel the water they capture by sending it to the leaves, so the leaves have water to use in photosynthesis. There are four major groups of plants, non-vascular plants, which are mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. Seedless vascular plants, which are lycopods, ferns, and then gymnosperms are seed plants, and then angiosperms, which are flowering plants. Mosses, liverworts, and hornworts have no true leaves. Their tissue specialization is only for the production of reproductive structures called sporangia. They have an alternation of generations life cycle like all plants, but in this case the gametophyte, the haploid generation, is dependent on the sporophyte. Lycopods are today comprised of only two terrestrial genera, Selaginella and Lycopodium, and a single aquatic species, Isoedes. These are very specialized species in the sense that they have unique alternation of generations, don't have any true leaves. Their roots are not as specialized as they are in ferns, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. But the important thing about these plants is that they dominated the Permian coal deposits during the Paleozoic, as well as were the first to colonize land during the Silurian period many years ago. Here a liverwort shown in the lower left, showing the thallic plant body, no true roots. These are the equivalent of leaves, and then which you'll see commonly on streamside boulders covered with mosses. Ferns and gymnosperms are more common, more abundant than mosses and liverworts. Ferns have a bisexual independent gametophyte. They have flagellate sperm. They have true leaves that develops in a peculiar way called circinate vernation. These fiddleheads that are produced in the process of leaf formation are commonly found in upscale restaurants, fiddlehead ferns. Gymnosperms are a much more important group than the rest we've covered so far. It includes pine trees, spruces, firs, cycads, and ginkgo. These all have true leaves, true roots, pollen. They produce seeds, though they don't have fruits. They have abundant woody tissue and have lateral meristems, which produce the true wood. Ferns shown here include two tree ferns in the upper right, a developing fern, which you can't quite see the fiddlehead developing. And then on the right we see the gymnosperms, the spruce, blue spruce from Colorado, fir, juniper, and then here the pinyon pine, which produces the pinyon nuts that you might find in a pesto. Angiosperms are the dominant life form on the planet today, and they are made up of about 350,000 species, about 400 families. Some are woody, some are herbaceous, some are annual, some are perennial. All produce flowers. Pollen is moved between flowers by animals or natural forces. Fertilization involves what we call double fertilization. Two sperm are delivered to the vicinity of the egg sac, at which time the sperm are released. One fertilizes to produce the zygote, the other fertilizes the primary endosperm nucleus. All flowering plants have flowers and have fruits, and fruits have seeds. Here we see a tomato plant showing the structure of the plant: roots that pursue water, leaves that capture sunlight, carbon dioxide, the stem that unites the two, flowers comprised of sepals, petals, anthers, which produce the pollen, the pistil comprised of the ovary, style, and stigma. The mature ovary will produce the fruit. The ovule, which contains the embryonic plant after fertilization, will produce the seed. Here we see a close-up of the angiosperm flower, where that has sepals that are usually green and protective, colored petals that attract pollinators, stamens which are made of filament and anther, and the pistil comprised of the ovary with enclosed ovule, style, and stigma, which is where the pollen will be delivered by pollinators. And here we see the ovule with the megaspore mother cell that will undergo meiosis to produce a primary megaspore that then will go on to develop through mitosis to produce an embryo sac of 7 to 8 cells. The angiosperm life cycle shown here, of that lily flower, showing in the male the production of pollen through meiosis, mitosis producing generative cell and a tube nucleus that the generative cell will produce 2 sperm. The pistil megaspore mother cell will produce through meiosis megaspores, one of which will undergo mitosis to produce the 8 nucleate embryo sac. The embryo sac in the ovule of the ovary will then be fertilized by the 2 sperm nuclei that are delivered to the egg and to the primary endosperm nucleus. Each will fuse with one or the other, producing a diploid 2N embryo and a triploid or more primary endosperm nucleus. The egg will develop into a zygote and a young embryonic plant. The endosperm that is produced from the primary endosperm nucleus will then provide nutritive tissue which will be consumed by the developing embryo. Monocots and dicots, we compare them. Monocots have seeds with 1 cotyledon. Leaves always have parallel veins. Lateral meristems rarely occur, so there's no wood produced. And flower parts mostly are in multiples of 3 or 3s. Dicots, on the other hand, have seeds with 2 cotyledons. The leaves have a network of vascular tissue of veins. They produce lateral meristems and therefore have true wood. And the flower parts are mostly in 4s or 5s or multiples of 4s or 5s. Angiosperm flowers shown here: the magnolia grandiflora, Datura stramonium, the source of scopolamine, which is used as a car sickness medicine. And then, of course, what we all know and love here on the right, coffee.